Welcome to this episode of Wanderlust Solo Women Travel Unscripted. Real women, real stories, real journeys, and no filter. Join Gina, your host, to share the experiences and stories of solo female travelers and advocates from all over the world, with a mission to empower women of all ages, backgrounds, and life stages to embrace solo female travel with confidence and enthusiasm, while being authentic and real, unscripted. Confronting the challenges and apprehensions many women face when considering solo adventures, providing inspiration to break through those barriers. Sharing how life transitions, loss, and trauma can lead to amazing experiences, rediscovery, and life journeys. The good, the bad, and the ugly of authentic and honest travel. So let's throw out the script, get comfy, and jump right into this episode.
Hi and welcome to this episode. Join me, Gina, with our guest Laura Clark of Wild Wanderer. Laura grew up in Southern California. She moved to Colorado in her 20s and has enjoyed hiking there ever since. She has summited over 600 peaks above 13,000 feet solo, including being the first woman to solo summit all of Colorado's 14ers as well as the Centennials. After each hike, she writes up trip reports for each and publishes them on her blog, which is read by fans from all over the world. She has been a Girl Scout since she was 6 and a Girl Scout volunteer for over 20 years, leading multiple group trips from kindergarten through to high school in outdoor and survival skills. She still volunteers today teaching young women to discover the outdoors. She is also the author of her book, Wild Wanderer. So join me in this episode with Laura.
Hi and welcome to Wanderlust Solo Women Unscripted. We are with Laura Clark today of Wild Wanderer. She's joining us to chat about some really exciting things about her adventures hiking the trails of Colorado and many other places. Fun thing we've got that I thought we'd go through all the episodes. So I asked Laura, were there moments in your travels you doubted yourself, and how did you overcome these thoughts? Because I thought it's a really good segue into this episode. So how would you like to answer?
There have absolutely been times I've doubted myself. Many times I've doubted myself. And in the beginning, it was on purpose. It was a good thing that I doubted myself. I did not have the skills to get through what it was I was trying to get through. So I doubted myself. I looked at what was up ahead. And then I went, you know what? I don't have the skills to do that. I don't have the skills to climb that part of the mountain, that peak. I don't have it. So I turned back around and I went home and spent several months in a climbing gym, practicing the skills that I would need in order to do better and to know that I could summit these mountains. At this point, I think my skills are pretty good. They're there, but I still go through that negative. You can't do this. It looks terrible. Looking at it, like looking at this mountain face, I'm like, oh my gosh, this looks insane. But at this point, I know that I have the skills. And so it's just like one step at a time. Just get through the next 10 feet and then get through the next 10 feet and keep going. And if you really find yourself in a place that you don't feel good at, sit there and wait a minute and think about it and look at the route ahead. Can you make this route? And then it's trusting my skills. I have trained for this. I've trained for it over and over and over again. I have to at some point trust my skills that I can actually do it. But there's no shame in turning around. I've turned around several times. There's some mountains that have taken me 5 attempts to complete. As long as you're smart about it and go back and train and try it again, that's a wonderful thing. There's nothing wrong with turning back. But there are some points where you're like, I just have to trust myself. I know I can do it. So let's at least attempt it and at least try and do it safely.
Yeah. And I think you really touched on something there is about trusting yourself and like trusting your gut. And I think that's a really good message for anyone that's traveling solo or just life in general. You've really got to trust your gut and
yes,
and your
absolutely.
intuition.
Yeah, if you're traveling solo, especially if you don't feel safe, if you feel like somebody's creeping you out next to you, or you're just in an area where you're hearing noises you don't think are normal, it's totally okay to get up and leave and go to a different place. In that aspect, yes, trust your gut. Absolutely. It's there for a reason. It will save you. And worst case scenario, you just move to a different place the next night. Best case scenario, you were safe, right? There's nothing wrong with moving around. And yeah, your gut is your best instinct when it comes to safety.
Exactly. And leading on for that, would you like to just explain, what is your background and what it is that you do?
Absolutely. So I'm a lifelong hiker. I've been a hiker since I was in elementary school, since I was, before I was 10, have always loved to hike. And I was a park ranger for a while in my early 20s. I moved to Colorado. I went through a really, really bad divorce. And the best way for me to get through that was to hike, was to get out there and just have free time to think. I would drop my kids off at school on Fridays. I worked full time, but I had Fridays off. And so I would drop them off for school and I would go hiking. And it just gave me mental clarity. Going through all the negative aspects of life I was going through. Divorce is hard. You want to yell and scream and call people names, and that's never appropriate in real life, but you're still doing it in your head, right? It gave me this place to do that in my head and work through everything and then come back with what is the rational, reasonable response to deal with this. Not my emotional response, but an actual reasonable response to do it. And I had hiked near me. I live near Pikes Peak, which is America's mountain. It's a big deal. It's a 14er in Colorado, which means it's over 14,000 feet. It's iconic. And I just fell in love with that mountain. And I hiked it over and over and over again. It's about 26 miles. It's like it's a marathon. It's pretty much a marathon, 7,500 feet of elevation gain. And I had done it several dozen times. And at one point I came down and I met another hiker going up and they said, "Oh, so what other 14ers have you done?" And I looked at her and said, "What's a 14er?" I had no idea that we had so many mountains that were this high. I was like, this was just my therapeutic hike. I didn't know there were other ones I could go to. So at that point I was like, oh, there's more. And then it became like a checklist and it became fun. It gave me a fun activity to do on just to clarify my head once a week, just to get normalcy in my own life and go through everything that was going on and try to be a better person when I was done with it. And I loved doing it solo. I had hiked it several times, dozens of times, and tried to find other people to go with me. And I just couldn't find people that were as excited, exuberant, ecstatic about doing 26 miles every Friday. So, especially with that elevation gain. So yeah, that's how I started hiking.
Yeah, I must admit, when I was reading your bio and I was like, Solo Summit, all of Colorado's 14ers, I was like, what are 14ers? So yeah, you explained it well.
Yeah, and I didn't know those were out there. And then I also found out there's almost 600 13ers as well. So when I was done with the 14ers, I'm like, there's just more to go. And then if you look at the 12ers, there's even more of those. There's like 900 and something 12ers. So I got a lot to do to explore in this state and other places that can keep me busy hiking solo for a long time.
You're heading away, is it next week?
I am, yeah. I'm heading to South America next week to see what I can climb out there. I'm just going out there free form and I'm going to see what the weather does. I've got some places I want to hit, but when you're a mountaineer, the weather window is huge. So I have several different options to do. And when I get there, it's what's the best weather window for what it is I can hike.
I think we'll have to catch up with you when you're back and you can tell us all about your South America adventures, because I'm sure you're going to have lots of stories after that.
I hope to. I hope to take a lot of pictures. I hope to have a lot of fun. I speak Spanish, so I'm hoping to interact with the locals and see how they live their life, and I'm really excited about that.
No, that's going to be a really good adventure. And leading on from that, it's from your travels, are there any things you can give as tips regarding we've touched on before, traveling as an introvert or an extrovert. Do you have any experiences like with that when you're traveling?
Absolutely. I am very much an introvert, very much. I can be an extrovert when I have to be, but it takes a whole lot out of me to do that. But there have been times when I've needed to. I've been in a place where I didn't feel safe, or a lot of places I hike in Colorado, there are hunters out there. At the same time I'm hiking, and we'll all kind of camp at the trailhead together and everybody goes their different ways. But I need to kind of get out of my shell and say, hey, I'm going to be hiking at 3 a.m. I know you can't shoot then, but you're going to be able to shoot eventually. And I want you to know I'm wearing maroon. This is the color I'm wearing. I'm not a wild animal. And that it takes a lot out of me. I'd much rather be out there with nobody else, but we live in a world where that doesn't really work. And I have to go out there and be friendly and say hi and have some camaraderie, and then also don't shoot me. I'm here. And I found really good ways to do that. And then it's just going back into the back of my truck and having me time. I don't do social interactions well. I can do them for short periods, but long periods, they just wear on me. I mean, and for introverts, I don't know if you're an introvert, you understand that social interactions just drain you mentally. They drain you physically, drain you mentally, and you're just done afterwards. I would much rather live in a world where I didn't have to interact with a lot of other people, but that's not our world. So you have to get out of your comfort zone, say hi to everybody, and then just kind of crawl back into your own space and deal
And
with it for
that's
a
sort
bit.
of interesting leading into your other areas of life where you were a Girl Scout and a Girl Scout Guide leader, where you very much have to interact and deal with different people's personalities and group settings. How did you navigate that?
To me, that's different because I'm in charge and I can navigate the conversation, and kids are easy. I love working with the kids. They're malleable. You can teach them things and they catch on really quick. It's the adults I don't like working with. The adults are difficult. They're the ones that make it hard. Like, the girls are great. They're great. They listen to you and they do things and they ask great questions, but adults are kind of set on what they want to do, and then you've got to work on their timeline or their agenda. And it's not the girls' fault they don't arrive on time. It's the parents' fault. So it's managing parents and girls. If I could just manage the girls, it'd be wonderful. Awesome. Girls are amazing and they love doing what they're doing, but they're not in charge of their daily schedules and their life and getting places on time. Their parents are in charge of that. So what really drains me is working with the parents. What really makes me enthusiastic is the girls, and seeing them do something for the first time, seeing them start a fire for the first time, or putting up a tent, or cooking their own food for the first time. That's fun. That's exciting. The other part is the financial thing. Are their parents paying for things on time? Are they showing up on time? I'd rather really not deal with that. But yeah, yes, which has nothing to do with the girls. That is not their fault at all. The girls are amazing. Love doing it. I'll be doing it forever. I've been doing it for over 20 years and I won't stop.
Awesome.
But if somebody has some magic key to dealing with adults, I love that.
Oh, if I get it, I'll pass it on. I have learned a few things. But and leading what you were saying about the girls, the story you mentioned about the young girl who was 13 who had just lost her father, and you led her. That was quite well. It definitely made my hairs on my arms stand up.
Yeah, so I've been a Girl Scout leader for over 20 years, and I'm all inclusive. It doesn't matter what your background. I would love to have you in my troop. And I've had several girls who have had varying degrees of disabilities, and we include them as much as we can in everything we do. And there was one time my girls, they were all early high school, wanted to climb Pikes Peak, and they wanted to make it a backpacking trip. And I said, absolutely. And whoever wants to go can go. We're not going to exclude anybody. If you can make it, you're going to make it. Doesn't matter what challenges you might be facing. And I had a girl that wanted to go, and she had lost her dad the week before. And she did have some challenges. She was autistic and had other issues that she was dealing with. And she told me before this hike, don't let me give up. And this is a long hike. Like I said before, it's a marathon. It's over 26 miles, and it's not easy. 7,500 feet of elevation gain. For them, it was a 3-day hike. Some people do it in a day, but that was not what we were doing. We were carrying packs, so it was heavy, and we're getting up, and several times she wanted to stop, and I kept saying, hey, you said you didn't want to. You said you wanted to keep doing this. You said you wanted to keep going. Let's keep going. And we ended up dealing with a lot of ice and snow on the trail where we had to help each other. And I had some of my other girls have no problem stepping up to help this girl through snow drifts and getting across difficult terrain and finally getting to the top. It took us a really long time to get to the top. If I would have done it myself, it would have been in 4 hours, but I think it took us 12. It took a long time to get up there. And she gets to the top and just looks at the sky, and she raises her fist and goes, this is for you, Dad. And I just broke down. It was phenomenal. Like, she didn't want to do it for herself. She wanted to do it for her dad. And that meant a lot to her. That's why she was doing it. And she didn't tell me that beforehand. And I'm so glad that we all helped push her on and kept her going, because she was doing it as a remembrance for her father, who had just passed. It was an amazing, amazing experience. And one of those things as a leader where you're like, this is why I do it. This is why we went through the whole, I don't want to keep going. I don't want to keep going. I'm tired. It's like, it's why you keep encouraging him, keep going, because there was something intrinsic to her I didn't know about. I mean, now I did know her father had passed, but I didn't know that her reason for doing this hike and summiting it was to honor her father. And that was huge.
And I think that's a great metaphor for sort of the message that, you know, myself and many other women out there that are trying to spread regarding, you know, things sometimes aren't easy and there are challenges, but it's that exhilaration you get from overcoming those challenges. And we all are, you know, I've been with women on retreat, and, you know, they've just come for holidays. Well, they think they're just coming for a holiday, but it ends up there's actually a deeper reason that, you know, they're there, and they don't realise it till they're there. And that happens many times, even for myself. You know, I've been standing somewhere on my travels as being, I can remember in Florence, I was standing on top of the cathedral there. You can go right up the top, and then all the bells started ringing across Florence, and I was by myself, and I got really emotional, and there's moments like that that are quite powerful, and that's such a cool story. I think it's really amazing.
Absolutely. I've had similar experiences where I've entered a church that I know was an opera hall and gone in and they're just singing amazing opera in a language I don't understand that just brings me to tears. Yeah. And I'm by myself, and I'm so glad that I stepped out of my comfort zone and just did that, just walked in with everybody else in there. That normally as an introvert, I would have stood outside, but I walked in and got to hear this amazing music. I have no idea what they were saying, but it was so beautiful. It brought me to tears.
Yeah, I think there's some things that transcend languages and cultures, and it's one great thing about being human. There's so much rubbish going on in the world, but there is a core basis to all of us being humans. We all seek joy and happiness, and when we find that in certain moments like that, those are those moments where your hairs stand up on
get the chicken skin.
They create a physical and emotional reaction. Yeah.
And I see that a lot when I'm climbing peaks. There's many times when I'm, most of the way through the hike, and I'm like, why am I doing this? I can't breathe. My body hurts. This is awful. And I get to the top, and it's just this exhilaration. All of a sudden, I'm no longer tired, and I can breathe again. And I just look around, and I'm like, yeah, this is exactly why I do it. I am at the top of this peak, and I'm the only one here, and I feel exhilarated, and I can sit here for a while, and then it's time to come down, but I did it. I actually did it. It hurts more to turn back. It really hurts to turn back. That's an awful feeling. There's times when it has to happen, but when you want to turn back and then you end up making it, it's phenomenal. It's like a euphoria. It's a bit of a high.
I just love that. And speaking of that and sort of leading in, what tips would you give any woman who wants to travel that comes from your hiking background or your camping and all your survival skills? Is there anything that from that they could use in their day-to-day lives? I know, like, I live out in the country, so there's certain survival skills we do need, if the power goes off and stuff like that, but there's, certain things that you sort of can adapt to different situations. Are there any tips around that you have?
Well, if it is difficult, you can do it. I actually work my job as VP of marketing and communications for a really large software firm. And I don't like talking in front of people. I really don't like it, but I do it, right? I do it. It's my job, meeting people, doing happy hours, all that kind of stuff. And I pull from the fact that, I've had to do difficult stuff before and I made it through it. And it's just, you give yourself a time period. I just have to be on for an hour. I just have to be on for 2 hours, and then I can go back and be in my own space. One thing with hiking, the difficult things that I've done that I didn't think I could do, I could do. So if I figured it out through mountaineering, I can figure it out through every other aspect of my life. I can figure it out through parenting. I don't know about you, but I've got 5 kids between the ages of 21 and 26, and this is the hardest part of parenting. They're all adults. They can do whatever they want to do, but yet they shouldn't be, but they're legally allowed to do it. So drives me absolutely insane. It's like, you know what? I've done harder things. I have. I can figure this out. I can absolutely figure it out. It might take some training. I might have to go back and figure that out, but I, as a person, can figure it out and make it successful.
And I think that's really so relevant. I haven't got kids, so kudos to you. 5 kids having a full-time career and doing all your mountaineering. Many women don't actually recognize, because it's just part of their day-to-day lives, how freaking amazing they are and the things they do accomplish. Even having a child is an amazing accomplishment. I mean, if you start breaking down the things that you do in your day-to-day life and how incredible they actually are, and then you go using those tools, like many women are scared to go solo traveling, but they have superpowers in other areas. It's just transforming those superpowers into those areas that you can use them when you're traveling as well.
Yeah, and those kids are looking up to you too. I mean, they really are. They are all looking up to you. And me in a Girl Scout role, I've got hundreds of girls looking up to me. And I learned really early on in my hiking career not to live my life through somebody else's fears. So, like, my mom did not want me to go solo. She was scared. She did not want me to do it. My kids were kind of okay with it because I've been the one teaching them outdoor survival skills for years. They're like, yeah, you got this, Mom. But a lot of society and culture said, don't do it. Don't do it. I'm like, well, I teach wilderness first aid and I teach Red Cross first aid, and I've hiked these trails several times. I can absolutely do this. And it gives me a freedom of mind. I know I can do it.
Yeah.
I'm good to go. And then I've inspired other people. Like my mom, like I said, she didn't want me to go solo. She was scared. Any mom wouldn't want their kid to do that. And they're like, I'm worried about you. I'm worried about you. And I found out like 4 years into my mountaineering career, my mom actually called me and said, you know what? She lives by the beach. She was stuck in a riptide and it pulled her out really far into the ocean. And she has to get back, right? She's got to swim back. And she's like, all I thought about was all the stuff you do with 14ers. And if you can do it, I can do it. And I'm never going to tell you can't do something again because I made it. I made it that far thinking about all the stuff you had done, knowing that we are stronger than we think we are. We just have to focus on the next step, the next 10 feet kind of thing. And she came around. She came around and she did something amazing. And I'd like to think that I helped inspire the fact that she didn't die. Like she made it. She mentally was able to do it because she knew somebody else had done something difficult.
And I think that's one barrier we especially, we call it tall poppy syndrome here in New Zealand, where, compare ourselves to others and then doubt our own abilities because someone else is doing something better but we've got to step back and stop looking at, use other people as an inspiration, but not as comparisons. I think that's the difference.
Definitely having self-awareness in what you can do and what you want to do. It's okay if you can't do something. If you want to do it, are you willing to train? I was not a rock climber before I became a mountaineer. I was not. I went to a rock climbing gym. I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, okay, I'm here to learn. And I'm doing stuff wrong, obviously, because I had never done it. And a couple of people are like, would you like help with this? I said, absolutely. Yes, I would love help with this. And had people help learn how to do what I didn't know how to do. I didn't know how to set up ropes. I didn't go into mountaineering knowing that. That wasn't my journey going into it. And I had a lot of people along the way that were willing to help and that brought me to the point where I could do it solo. I can now set up my own rope solo. I can climb up, I can climb down, I can rappel. I still get scared. I still do. I look at my knots 4 or 5 times. If I have service, I rewatch a video on the knot, even though I teach knots. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Because when you're up there, you might be a little hypoxic. You might, I still every time have these like checklists. I bring a laminated checklist with me every time. Even though I know I can do it, I want to make sure I did it right. Double check, triple check. Get out there and okay, because when you're rappelling 200 feet or more, that's huge. That's a huge commitment to actually like jump off and just rappel, and that's scary, really scary. But I have to trust that I've done it right. I mean, I triple check, but I still have to trust I did it right. That's a huge commitment going over the edge.
100%. I'm very much opposite to you. I'm so terrified of heights or anything like that. But, I have put myself, like I went with some girlfriends to Brazil. We went to Rio. But serendipitously, we met one of the Red Bull hang gliders. There's a big hang gliding competition that was happening. So we ended up going hang gliding off this cliff. All you had is one carabiner clipping you on. And it's like, I see the image, like, they videoed it. And all I'm doing is, like, holding on so tight to the I don't know what you call them, pilot, driver. And it was amazing. Like, I'm so glad I did it. But it's definitely way out of my comfort zone. So what one person's comfort zone isn't necessarily the next person. So that's that comparison thing. Like, that was out of my comfort zone. Your comfort zone might be way up.
But you stepped out of it.
Still, yeah.
You stepped out of your comfort zone. And mountaineering was not my comfort zone. I just had goals and realized that if I didn't do these things, I'd never be able to hit all these mountains. And my goal was to summit all these mountains. And if I didn't learn a skill that I wasn't comfortable with, then I wouldn't be able to climb these mountains. And I don't consider myself a rock climber at all. It was an ends to a means. I needed to learn the basic skills to keep myself safe. And I did, so that I can summit a bunch of mountains. But do I like rock climbing? Absolutely not. Totally out of my comfort zone. But it's necessary, right? It's necessary for me to get up or down some of these peaks. So what do I got to do? How important are my goals? And my goals were obviously important enough to step out of that to make it happen.
That's awesome. And going from that, because you said how people helped you, and that's amazing. But, like in this podcast, we also share some of the bad stuff, the good, the bad, and the everything in between. And you touched on about when you were in your snowstorm and needed help.
Okay, so this happened this year, and I've never actually told this story before. So I'm going to see if I can tell it well. But it just happened. It didn't just happen, but it happened this year. Well, last year. It's now 2025. It happened in my climbing season of 2024. And a lot of the peaks I need to climb are in the middle of nowhere. They are really hard to get to, but this one luckily had a trailhead to it, off probably a 10-mile dirt road. And I get there and there's a summit, or there's a register, a trail register where you sign your name in and keep going. So I looked at it. Nobody had been there in the past 2 weeks. I signed my name and I headed up. Now, something to tell you about this beforehand is there was weather coming in. There was supposed to be rain coming in around noon. And I knew this. So I started really early. And my whole idea was, okay, I'm going to camp at a lake. There's a trail that goes to the lake. I'm going to camp there, and then it's off trail from there to hit the summit. But at least there's this trail that goes to the lake. Nobody else is supposed to be in the area. I'll get there by 10. Storm doesn't come in until 12. I'll set up my tent. I'm good to go, right? I can weather out a storm in a tent. I'm good with that. So I'm hiking and hiking and hiking, and I'm like about a mile away from camp, and the storm's coming in. It's coming in early, right? It's earlier than I anticipated. And I'm thinking to myself, I know it's only a mile away. I know how fast I hike. I know I can get there in another 20 minutes, set up camp. I'm good to go. I just have to outrace this storm. And I'm racing and racing to get there. And I finally get to where I want to be. And there's like 10 tents set up where I need to be. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, nobody signed the trail register. Like, they should have signed it before. I didn't realize anybody would be here. And at this point, it had been raining for a good half hour, and it was cold, and there was wind, and snow was coming in. And I have Raynaud's, so I get cold really quick. I lose function of my hands and my feet and my speech. And I get up there, and I just needed to set up a tent for the night. That's all I needed to do. And I walk up to this group, and I know I sounded terrible. I sounded like a lunatic. I can't make or form words. And I say, like, storm, set up tent, here. Like, that's pretty much all I said, because I couldn't form words. I was really cold. And the group that was up there looked at me like I was crazy. And one guy stands up, looks at me and goes, if you just go back half a mile, there's a ton of campsites down there. And I looked at him like he was crazy. Like, do you not understand that there's a snowstorm coming in, and that anybody else would have thought I was hypothermic. I wasn't, but I was close at that point. And I didn't have enough capacity to argue with this person. I didn't. It was just like, he doesn't want me here. Okay, fine. I've just got to find a place to set up the tent. And the snow started coming in. The wind started coming in. Winds were insane and blowing everything around. And finally I said, I'm not going back to those other campsites. I'm just going to find a spot to put my tent. You're not supposed to do that, but this to me was a survival situation. I wasn't going to make it to where I needed to be. I'm just setting up a tent. And my tent became a kite. And it took me 40 minutes to set up a tent. And normally I could do it in 5. I just couldn't. I had no dexterity. I couldn't put things together, and it was cold, and it was awful. In 2 minutes after I set up my tent, there were 2 inches of snow on top of it. It was insane. Absolutely insane. And, I do end up making it through the night. I do teach wilderness first aid. I knew what I needed to do. I knew what I had to go through, and I kept myself warm. And the next day I summit my peak. Yay, it's all good. I live through the night. I summit my peak. I come back down, and I meet this group again on the way back down. And they're like, so that was some snow squall last night, wasn't it? How'd you do? And I'm like, you guys almost killed me. Like, you guys had your tent set up, and you had heaters, and you turned me away. What the heck? Why would you turn me away? And they were a men's religious group on a men's retreat, and they thought it would be awkward to have a woman join them. And that's why they told me no. That was their reasoning, was, you know what, we didn't feel it was comfortable to have you here. And I'm like, who is guiding this? Like, if I wasn't who I was, I would have died. If I would have anybody else out there, they wouldn't have made it. My skills made it okay, but anybody else that would have come up there, they wouldn't have killed that person, but they would have kept them from surviving. Like, you have a tent set up, you have heaters set up, you're good to go. The storm came in 2.5 hours earlier than expected. It was awful. And I didn't expect anybody else to be up there. I expected those campsites to be free. They weren't free. I figured I did everything I should have done. But honestly, looking back, when the snow started coming in, I should have stopped where I was and just set up camp. That's what I should have done. So personally, it was a lesson. You can't rely on those campsites being available later on. You just have to, okay, the weather's coming in, do something about it.
Have a plan B.
Have a plan B, yeah. Yeah. And I was okay. Like I said, I was okay. I was miserable, but I was okay. I made it. I was mad. I was very mad. I think in my journal, I wrote like 4 pages of notes of why I was so mad at these people. But that's what hiking does. It gives you the time to do that. And then when I met them again, nicely say, yeah, you could have killed me. Luckily you didn't, but you could have. But next time, how about you extend an olive branch to somebody coming to you in a storm kind of thing.
That's crazy. Like, I understand that, they might have had their own reasons for their privacy any other time. But
I would have set up anywhere. Just let me set up.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
certain circumstances, I'm sure they could have, made an exception and or at least tried to explain or helped you. They could have set you up and helped you.
Anything would have been great, but at least on my side, I made it through the night. I woke up before them. I summited my peak and I made it down before they did. So it was a win for me. I was faster than all those men. Like, just I made it, but that's not the point. If you're out there hiking and somebody needs help, there's a storm or they're hurt. I wasn't hurt, but if there is something like that, you need to help your fellow hiker out. I've
Yeah.
never had an experience with that otherwise where somebody wouldn't help. And I was really surprised that all they needed to do was let me set up my own tent. They didn't have to help me at all. I didn't need food. I didn't need their heaters. I just needed to set my tent up so I'd have shelter. And their answer was no.
Yeah. And I think that, I've been, knock on wood, very fortunate. I've been in some hairy situations traveling, and there are good people out there. We
Yes.
do hear a lot of bad stories about travel in general, but we don't hear all the good stories. They don't make headlines. And normally people are good and they do want to help if they can. We just don't hear those stories. I can remember one. I was caught a ferry back from an island in Thailand. The ferry I'd gone on was at one port. I didn't realise the ferry coming back was a different port. And I needed to get to the train station. The train station originally was like 20 minutes away, where this was over an hour. So I was panicking because I was going to miss my train. And this Thai lady overheard me and she said, "Do you want to ride? We can take you to the town." And I was like, "Oh, yeah." And in my panic, I just jumped in with her. And she asked when the train was, and she said, "Look, you're going to miss it." And I said, it was all the way out to Bangkok, so it was a 5-hour train ride. And she said, "I'm going to Bangkok. Just come with us." It was her and this man. So I spent they took me all the way to Bangkok. It wasn't until we got closer into Bangkok City. She said, because she lived on this side of the river, she said, I'm hopping out here. I'll leave you with the driver. I thought it was her husband. She hardly said boo the whole trip. She hopped out and she said, "Just give him a tip. I've already paid him. Just give him a tip when he drops you off." So as soon as she got out and we took off, he wouldn't stop talking. It was like, the whole spiel. I was looking for every exit point in that van, but he dropped me right in front of my accommodation. I gave him a tip, So yeah, sometimes you do just have to trust people. I know it's incredibly hard, and when you have situations like yours when human nature sort of is at its not the best, it makes it a little bit hard, but it just showed you had your survival skills and you ended up relying on yourself anyway.
Yes, and I can also say that I've given back. My girls have given back. One of the first times we were hiking Pikes Peak was August, which is summertime here, and a freak snowstorm came in. Mountains make their own weather, and my Girl Scouts, they were an outdoor survival troop. They were prepared for everything. They had extra food, extra everything they needed. And when the snow came in, people started trickling into where our camp was that needed help. They were hiking in sandals or didn't have food and couldn't make it down and didn't have shelter and couldn't start a fire. And those girls ended up saving 7 people's lives that night just by having the skills and saying, absolutely okay. We had some soldiers come in that were like, "Oh, we're just going to sleep in this cave up here." And the winds are insane and the snow is insane. And they come back down and like, "We can't start a fire." And I look at my girls, are like, "We got this." I sent 2 of my high school girls up there and they started a fire for them and come back down. And that's what you do. You help people. You don't say, "No, you can't do that." And in fact, we asked them, we were in a hut at that time. In some places in the United States, they have huts that sleep like 6 people. And there were 6 of us, but we're like, we'll just make room. Like, if there's a snowstorm here, this is insane, just come join us. And a lot of people were like, "No, we don't want to put you out." I'm like, "No, come, you're going to die." Like, it's cold out there. You don't have a shelter. You don't have sleeping bags. You don't have food. Let's help you with this. We have no problem paying it forward and don't really look for anything from that and hope that somebody else would do the exact same thing. We had people that were hypothermic and some that had altitude sickness, and the girls ended up treating them and giving food, and we shared sleeping bags. Like, we only had enough sleeping bags for us, but my girls are like, "Well, we have 6 inches of snow and these people have no sleeping bags. How about the girls double up in their sleeping bags and these people coming in can double up in the extras that we have. Let's keep these people warm. Let's save them," kind of thing, right? Or we're Girl Scouts. We have extra food. We're always prepared. Let's give them our food. Let's, what are the symptoms? How can we help them deal with altitude sickness or hypothermia or whatever? And that's what you're supposed to do. You hope that if you come across other people that they're going to help you should always be prepared. These people, none of them were prepared, but that's not the point. You come across people that are unprepared, you still try to help.
100%. And, and I think that's, paying that forward just in life in general is a really good philosophy. So I think that's, a really good message in general to sort of, lead out of our episode. But I also wanted to touch on the fact that you've also written a book recently.
I have, yes. Yeah. So I've kind of got it right here. Kind of show it. So, yeah. Yeah. So, and my book, it's called Wild Wanderer, Soloing Colorado's 200 Highest Peaks. And a lot of people think it's a guidebook. It is not. It's my journey from being a single mom going through a really bad divorce to becoming a mountaineer and the lessons I learned along the way, both in life from being a single mom when that was not what I expected. I mean, a single mom without a job and no income and no money, and raising my kids and going on my 14er journey and learning about wild animal encounters or hiking or going off trail and navigation and getting in really terrible situations, falling in frozen ponds or being stalked by a mountain lion, and kind of what I did and how I got through it, and how to hopefully, not necessarily my personal life, more my mountaineering life, but how to not make the mistakes I did. Like, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I made some mistakes. I learned. I don't make those mistakes again, but I think it's a fun book. Anybody can read it. It's great. I've gotten wonderful reviews from men and women and kids, and just great campfire stories. I've got some ghost stories in there, real life ghost stories that, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. Or I've had hallucinations on trails because I pushed myself too hard, and I think it's a fun book.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. I'm glad you touched on some of those topics because we didn't get to cover them all in here. So it'll be an exciting read for anyone that wants to, have a look. So I'll put all those details in for everyone. And I just wanted, so we've got two little last fun bits. So we've got a quick fire round. This is just going to be real quick. So just say whatever off the top of your head. I'm just going to pick a bunch of things. So, this is quite a good one. So, a backpack or a suitcase?
A backpack, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Even heading to South America, I'm taking a backpack. Yeah.
This is another easy one for you. City escape or nature retreat?
Definitely nature. Yeah, definitely.
This is a good one. It causes some arguments. Fold or roll?
Are we talking about a sleeping bag? Oh, yeah, no, I stuff. I just stuff stuff. I don't do either one. It's all going to be wrinkled and stink anyway. It doesn't really matter. Nobody's going to see me. I'm good.
What is the most unexpected item in your travel bag?
Well, I keep a journal with me all the time. I pack light. I really go light because I do so much backpacking. Like my journal, my bandana, I always have one of those. And then my camera. My camera is a DSLR Canon that weighs like 5 pounds. And for anybody that does what I does, that is unexpected because who in the world would do that? But I do trip reports and need several hundred pictures of everything I do. So yeah, nobody else would do that. I'm the only one out there hiking with a 5-pound camera, but I hike with a 5-pound camera.
Rare, just in general, it is rare now to see people with the big cameras with now the, how good the iPhone and technology is with cameras.
My issue is I have Renaud's, so I don't have fingerprints. And when my fingers get cold, I can't work a camera. I can't work an ATM machine. I can't work anything that's touch screen. So I need to have something that I can actually physically press buttons on, which is the whole reason I have that. I've tried my iPhone and it does great when I can actually press it, but at high altitudes when I have no dexterity, it doesn't understand that I'm pressing the button. So yeah.
Technology, it's either out.
Yeah. And I got around that a little bit. Like I'll have a stylus with me sometimes, but you'd be surprised when you get above 13,000 feet, the stylus doesn't work either. It doesn't work on touch screens. Nothing does. So I need something that doesn't need a touch screen.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I just wondered, have you got a question that we can pass on to our next guest?
Ooh, I do. So my question is, what's a skill you've learned through adventuring that you use in everyday life?
Perfect. Love it. I'll just take a little drink here. I could keep talking for ages. You've been amazing. But we'll wrap this up because we're nearly at the end of our episode. So would you like to share with our audience where everyone can find you?
Absolutely. So I have a website. It's wildwanderertripreports.com. And that's mainly a Colorado thing. I've got trip reports for over 600 peaks in Colorado. But if you go to the podcast page, I've got really good videos on how to stay safe solo, how to start a fire, how to deal with mountaineering in winter, and how to stay warm and all that kind of stuff. All short 5 to 7 minute videos. They're not very long, just to get people out there, because you can absolutely do it. If you don't think you can, you can. It's just getting out there and doing it. You can absolutely do it. Wildlife safety.
I love the quote you shared.
My favorite quote is, I'm not going to live my life through someone else's fears. So if I'm okay to do it, I'm going to do it. Now, I'm going to do it safely. I'm going to take the training I need. I'm not going to be dumb about it. I'm going to do what I need to do. But yeah, just because my mom is scared doesn't mean I can't do it. I'll just tell her when I get back, kind of thing.
That was the quote. I thought it was amazing. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for your time. And it's been so good to talk to you, Laura. And I look forward to hearing about your adventures in South America. So keep us posted.
Wonderful. It was wonderful talking to you. And I hope if I get to New Zealand that we get to meet in person.
Definitely. There's lots of peaks and hikes and everything to do here, especially where I live here in the Coromandel. There's quite a lot. But yeah, for big mountains, you've got down the South Island. So I'm sure you'd find lots to do.
I'm excited. Yes. Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Well, thank you again. Bye.
Awesome. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Wanderlust Solo Women Travel Unscripted with our guest Laura Clark of Wild Wanderer. Stay tuned for more exciting adventures ahead.
Thanks for listening. Please share the love by liking, commenting, or subscribing, or join us in our Facebook community.